Ulzana's Raid wasn't just another cavalry western. It was a Vietnam War protest film disguised as an Apache chase, where a 60-year-old acrobat turned movie star controlled his own editing cut from across the Atlantic. A Mexican actor silently terrified an entire cast without speaking a word of dialogue, and the crew billeted at a Las Vegas casino while filming America's most brutal depiction of frontier violence ever committed to celluloid. Behind those scorched Arizona landscapes lies a production history so weird it reads like fiction. Two completely different films existing simultaneously under the same title. A German TV station creating an unauthorized version that nobody sanctioned. A director who openly despised his own producer. And a young actor who matched wits with Burt Lancaster during their very first scene together. And won. Here are 15 weird facts about Ulzana's Raid, from the acrobat who shaped the final cut to the wives who connected the Apache scout to the man he was hunting. And stick around for the bonus fact. It involves a German television station creating a third version of the film that nobody authorized and nobody can officially acknowledge. Let's follow the tracks. Number 15. Cast and crew slept at the Tropicana. The production of Ulzana's Raid films in the state parks of Arizona and Nevada, harsh, remote desert wilderness where Apache raiders terrorized settlers a century before cameras arrived. Temperatures reach brutal extremes. The landscape is unforgiving. The locations require long daily drives from wherever the crew is staying. So, where does Robert Aldrich billet his cast and crew? The Las Vegas Tropicana Casino Hotel. Film comment confirms this detail without irony. The people making Hollywood's most brutal, unsparing depiction of Apache warfare spend their nights surrounded by slot machines, showgirls, and all-night buffets. After filming disembowelments and torture sequences in the Arizona desert, the cast returns to one of America's most aggressively cheerful environments. The contrast between production and accommodation defines the entire shoot. Bruce Davison films scenes involving mutilated corpses and psychological breakdown, then returns to a casino resort where everything is designed to make people feel lucky. Burt Lancaster films the quiet, weathered stoicism of McIntosh by day and presumably plays cards by night. The disconnect between the film's brutal moral seriousness and the glittering entertainment complex hosting its cast represents one of Hollywood production's most bizarre mismatches of tone and circumstance. Number 14. The ultimate American Western was penned by a Scotsman. Ulzana's Raid features some of the most authentic, hard, boiled, and hyper-realistic frontier dialogue ever put to film. The characters speak with a weary, grounded cadence that sounds like it was ripped straight out of an 1880s Arizona diary. What makes this so shocking? The screenwriter Alan Sharp was a Scottish immigrant who had barely spent any time in the American West before writing the script. He didn't grow up surrounded by the mythology of the frontier. He grew up in a shipyard town in Scotland. Yet, Sharp somehow managed to perfectly capture the psychological decay of the American cavalry and the tactical realities of Apache warfare from an ocean away. He treated the Western not as American folklore, but as a universal canvas for exploring imperialism and violence, which is exactly why the dialogue cuts so incredibly deep. Number 13. The Apache scout's wife was Ulzana's sister-in-law. The film's most quietly devastating detail exists entirely in the background and never gets fully explained to audiences. Kenai, the Apache scout who helps the cavalry track Ulzana, knows exactly who he is hunting, not professionally, personally. Their wives are sisters. Think about what this means structurally. Kenai guides American cavalry toward a man who is family. He reads Ulzana's tracks, anticipates his tactics, understands his psychology, not because he's a skilled tracker, but because he knows this man intimately. Every piece of intelligence Kenai provides comes from a lifetime of familial proximity to the man he's helping to kill. The script never plays this up dramatically. No scenes confront the relationship directly. No dialogue acknowledges the full weight of what Kenai is doing. The information gets delivered once and then sits in the background of every subsequent scene, like a low hum. Alan Sharp and Robert Aldrich trust audiences to carry that knowledge forward without being reminded. The result is one of the Western genre's most quietly disturbing moral complications, a man hunting his brother-in-law through the desert while American soldiers watch. Number 12. Two completely different films exist. Ulzana's Raid exists in two distinct versions that are both the official film, and neither is quite the real film. Robert Aldrich supervised the American theatrical release. Burt Lancaster supervised the European version. Both versions carry the same title. Both versions run at similar lengths, yet they contain different scenes, different shots, different dialogue choices, and completely different narrative implications. The Lancaster version opens aggressively with Ulzana leaving the reservation before the credits even roll. The Aldrich version, it opens with the American cavalry casually playing a game of baseball, a jarring, deeply ironic image of American pastoral innocence right before the slaughter begins. Lancaster and Aldrich watched the exact same footage and made completely different choices about what the film should say and how it should say it. Audiences in America see Aldrich's film. Audiences in Britain see Lancaster's film. Both groups believe they've seen Ulzana's raid. Number 11. A German TV station creates third version. In 1986, 14 years after the film's release, a German television station does something remarkable and completely unauthorized. It obtains prints of both the Aldrich cut and the Lancaster cut and combines them into a single version. The resulting film runs 111 minutes, longer than either official version, and contains every scene from both cuts assembled into one complete edit. Nobody sanctions this. Neither Aldrich nor Lancaster approves it. Universal Pictures doesn't authorize it. The German broadcaster simply decides that if two versions of the film exist and each contains unique scenes not in the other, the correct response is to combine them. The resulting edit represents the most complete version of Ulzana's raid that exists anywhere, containing material that no single official version preserves. The unauthorized German edit circulates among film scholars and serious enthusiasts as a curiosity. It can't be officially released or commercially distributed because nobody owns the rights to this specific combination of material. It exists in a legal and creative limbo, more complete than either authorized version, yet itself unauthorized. A film about two armies chasing each other across the desert generates a film editing situation where a television station's unauthorized assembly becomes the most comprehensive record of what was actually shot. Number 10. Aldrich shot the script almost verbatim. In 1970s Hollywood, scripts were essentially treated as mere suggestions. Directors and stars famously tore screenplays to shreds, demanding massive rewrites on set. Robert Aldrich was no exception. He was known as a fiercely independent, demanding director who bent productions to his will. But with Ulzana's raid, something genuinely weird happened. Aldrich shot Alan Sharp's script almost exactly as it was written. Aldrich famously admitted later that he didn't want to change a single word. He recognized instantly that the pacing, the allegory, and the violence were perfectly calibrated. In a town where egos usually demand a rewrite just to prove dominance, Aldrich looked at the pages, realized he couldn't do any better, and pointed his cameras at exactly what the Scottish screenwriter had laid out. Number 9. Aldrich openly despised his own producer. Robert Aldrich doesn't hold back when discussing his producer. Carter DeHaven receives no diplomatic treatment in Aldrich's interviews about the film. Aldrich says bluntly, "I don't have the highest regard for Carter DeHaven, the producer." Aldrich goes further in explaining why the production's creative triangle mattered so much. He needs Sharp and Lancaster aligned with his vision because he cannot rely on producer support. DeHaven represents the financing side of the equation, the studio interface, the business concerns, and Aldrich treats him as an obstacle rather than a collaborator. The director is grateful that his writer and star share his political viewpoint about the Vietnam allegory, his approach to depicting Apache violence without sanitization, and his willingness to make a film that prioritizes moral complexity over commercial formula. The public nature of Aldrich's contempt is striking. Directors typically maintain professional discretion about producers, especially immediately after a film's release. Aldrich bypasses discretion entirely. In 1972, while the film is still in theaters, he tells interviewers directly that he doesn't respect the man who produced it. The insult is preserved in the production record, attached permanently to DeHaven's professional legacy on this film. Number 8. Lancaster was still an acrobat at 58. Burt Lancaster begins his professional career as a circus acrobat. Before Hollywood, before stardom, before his Oscar, he performs tumbling and aerial acts that require extraordinary physical conditioning and discipline. The career ends when he injures his hand, but the body remains. By the time Lancaster arrives on the Ulzana's raid set, he's 58 years old. He's been a movie star for nearly 3 decades. He's won an Academy Award for Elmer Gantry in 1960. He's made over 50 films, and he still moves like an acrobat. The physical ease Lancaster brings to McIntosh, the way he mounts horses, crosses difficult terrain, manages himself in extreme desert conditions, comes directly from a lifetime of trained physical discipline that most actors half his age couldn't match. Bruce Davison notices it immediately. Davison is young, trained, and in the prime physical condition of his mid-20s. He watches a 58-year-old man outperform him physically in the desert heat, day after day, without apparent effort. When Lancaster gives Davison acting advice during production, it comes from a performer who understands craft at a cellular level, not just as technique, but as physical fact. The acrobat's body and the actor's mind arrive together in the Arizona desert and make McIntosh fully real. Number 7. Davison upstaged Lancaster in first scene. Bruce Davison's first scene with Burt Lancaster almost destroys the shot before it begins. The desert sun is setting. The crew has 30 seconds to capture what they need before losing the light entirely. Aldrich calls action. Lancaster, with decades of screen experience and a reputation for knowing exactly what the camera sees, begins pulling his horse back slightly, angling himself to dominate the frame. He's upstaging the younger actor. It's subtle, it's deliberate, it's a star protecting his position. Davison notices, not consciously, not through technical film knowledge, but instinctively. He does the same thing, pulls his horse back to maintain his own position in the frame. Neither actor is on their mark anymore. Aldrich is screaming about losing the light, and Lancaster looks at this 27-year-old actor who just matched him move for move and delivers his verdict. Well, the young lieutenant is not as innocent as he seems, you little son of a bitch. It's a compliment disguised as an insult. Lancaster later gives Davison some of the best acting advice of his early career. He tells the young actor that all his visible effort, all the things Davison thinks he's doing brilliantly, means nothing compared to Lancaster standing still like a fire plug. The lesson about stillness, about trusting the camera to find performance rather than performing for the camera, comes from a star who immediately recognizes a worthy student in the 30-second window of their first shared shot. Number 6. Ulzana barely speaks throughout the film. Joaquin Martinez plays Ulzana, the film's title character and central antagonist, as a figure of almost complete silence. The character speaks minimally throughout the entire film. His motivations get explained by other characters, primarily Kinite and McIntosh. Ulzana himself remains an observing, deciding, acting presence, rather than a speaking one. This creates a genuinely strange, dramatic situation. The film is named after this man. His escape from the reservation sets every event in motion. His tactical decisions drive the entire plot. Every scene involving the cavalry exists in reaction to choices Ulzana makes. Yet he almost never speaks. His interiority remains entirely sealed. Audiences never hear his reasoning in his own words, never receive direct access to his perspective on what he's doing and why. The silence makes Ulzana more disturbing than any amount of dialogue could achieve. A villain who explains himself becomes comprehensible and therefore manageable. Ulzana, who simply acts, who observes a homestead, calculates a response, executes a plan, and moves on, remains fundamentally alien to the film's American characters and to its American audience. The most important person in Ulzana's raid communicates almost entirely through the evidence he leaves behind, like a desert that expresses itself through absence rather than speech. Number 5. The film is both pro and anti-Apache. Ulzana's raid occupies an impossible position in the history of revisionist westerns. Turner Classic Movies notes that the film is considered revisionist, but not because it portrays Native Americans sympathetically in the way that genre usually requires. It's revisionist because of its allegorical message about Vietnam and America's conduct in asymmetric warfare. The Apache in this film are brutal, methodical killers. The film never pretends otherwise. Yet simultaneously, the script provides more genuine understanding of Apache motivation and worldview than virtually any previous Western. Kinite explains why Ulzana acts with apparent cruelty. The Apache belief that power transfers through suffering, that stealing an enemy's spirit through torture replenishes one's own strength, drained by reservation confinement. The explanation doesn't justify, it illuminates. Ulzana becomes comprehensible without becoming sympathetic. Film critic Emmanuel Levy calls the film one of the most uncompromisingly brutal and honest westerns ever made. The brutality and the honesty exist in productive tension. Aldrich makes a film that respects Apache tactical and spiritual logic while not softening what that logic produces. He refuses the comfortable revisionist option of making the Apache victims rather than combatants. The result is a film that satisfies neither pro-Apache progressives nor traditional Western conservatives, which is probably exactly the weird, uncomfortable place it was designed to occupy. Number 4. Lancaster considered it a perfect first draft. Burt Lancaster spends decades watching first screenplays arrive on his desk. By 1972, he's read hundreds of original scripts and starred in films from Hollywood's best writers. He develops strong, cynical opinions about what a first draft can actually achieve. In 1972, Lancaster makes a declaration remarkable enough to get preserved in multiple film histories. In his entire career, the only first screenplays he truly admires are Birdman of Alcatraz and Ulzana's Raid. Not polished final drafts, first drafts. The raw, initial version of what the writer actually wanted to say. For a star of Lancaster's magnitude to point to a raw script and declare it flawless without demanding an immediate vanity, rewrite is a testament to just how lightning in a bottle Alan Sharp's writing truly was. Number 3. The film predicted its critical fate. Ulzana's Raid receives exactly the divided critical reception that its own content predicts it will receive. Gene Siskel names it one of the 10 best films of 1972. Vincent Canby of the New York Times calls it one of the year's best films and writes a separate analytical piece titled How the West Was Brutal, specifically to examine the film's subtext. Other critics denounce it for having a hackneyed plot and excessive violence. Canby's analytical piece notes explicitly that the very ordinary plot does not do justice to the complexity of the film itself. This is a strange kind of praise, acknowledging that the surface story is conventional while arguing that what happens beneath that surface justifies the film's existence entirely. Critics comparing McIntosh to Captain Ahab from Moby Dick and Ethan Edwards from The Searchers place the film in literary and cinematic company it visually resembles only superficially. The commercial failure that Aldrich acknowledges. The film doesn't make money, coexists with this critical recognition that something important has been achieved. Aldrich says he's very proud of the film despite its box office disappointment. The film that argues there are no clean victories in asymmetric warfare promptly demonstrates the point by failing commercially while succeeding artistically. Its content and its reception mirror each other with uncomfortable precision. Number 2. Aldrich was flat broke when he made it. Robert Aldrich makes Ulzana's Raid during one of the lowest financial periods of his career. After the massive commercial success of The Dirty Dozen in 1967, Aldrich buys his own production studio. Then a string of box office failures drains the money. By 1972, he's selling the studio he'd been so proud to own. He returns to Ulzana's Raid with his back against the wall. Film comment confirms the circumstances explicitly. Aldrich was in one of his bust periods, divesting himself of the studio he'd bought in the wake of the success of The Dirty Dozen after a string of box office failures. Back to the wall, the director returned to his origins to make one of his very greatest films. The financial desperation shapes the production in ways both practical and creative. Aldrich can't afford creative failures. He needs this film to work. His willingness to accept a producer he despises, to collaborate intensively with Lancaster and Sharp, to shoot quickly and efficiently in Arizona and Nevada rather than on expensive studio sets. All of it reflects the pragmatism of a filmmaker who understands that this particular film represents his professional lifeline. The greatest film of his career gets made when he has the least leverage and the most to lose. Number 1. Lancaster reunites with Aldrich after 18 years. Burt Lancaster and Robert Aldrich first worked together in 1954. They make 2 films that year. Apache, where Lancaster plays a Native American warrior trying to survive the end of the Apache Wars, and Vera Cruz, where Lancaster plays a villain opposite Gary Cooper. Both films succeed commercially. Both establish the Aldrich-Lancaster collaboration as artistically productive and commercially viable. Then 18 years pass. Both men build separate careers. Aldrich makes Kiss Me Deadly, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, The Flight of the Phoenix, and The Dirty Dozen. Lancaster makes Sweet Smell of Success, Elmer Gantry, Birdman of Alcatraz, The Leopard, and Airport. 2 major careers run parallel for nearly 2 decades without intersection. When they reunite on Ulzana's Raid, they bring 18 years of separate development back to a subject matter that connects directly to their first collaboration. Apache tells the story of a Native American warrior trying to adapt to American domination. Ulzana's Raid tells the story of a Native American warrior refusing that domination violently. The 2 films bracket 18 years of American history, from the early Cold War optimism of 1954 to the Vietnam-era disillusionment of 1972. The same director, the same star, the same subject, separated by nearly 2 decades of everything that changes a country's understanding of itself. Number bonus fact: 3 films nobody officially made. Ulzana's raid exists in three versions, and only two of them are real. Robert Aldrich's version is real, Burt Lancaster's version is real. The German television station's 111-minute unauthorized combination of both versions is not officially real, has never been officially released, cannot be commercially distributed, and yet represents the most complete record of what was actually filmed. This creates a genuinely weird situation in film history. The most comprehensive version of a celebrated film is the version that nobody sanctioned, nobody owns, and nobody can officially acknowledge. Scholars who want to study Ulzana's raid completely, to see every scene that Aldrich and Lancaster each decided to include, must seek out a version created by a German broadcaster in 1986 who simply decided that if two versions existed, combining them made obvious sense. The film about two opposing forces that can never achieve a clean victory over each other generates a distribution situation with three versions and no definitive winner. Aldrich's version is authoritative. Lancaster's version is authoritative. The German version is comprehensive but illegitimate. No single viewing of Ulzana's raid captures the complete film. The only way to see everything is to watch two authorized versions and one unauthorized one, which is the kind of weird, unresolved situation that suits a film about the impossibility of clean outcomes perfectly. Ulzana's raid failed commercially in 1972 because audiences expecting a straightforward Western received a Vietnam War allegory disguised as a cavalry chase. But time vindicates difficult films. The movie that Aldrich made while selling his studio, that Lancaster edited from across the Atlantic, and that a German television station later combined into a third unauthorized version, it endures as one of American cinema's most uncompromisingly honest examinations of violence, asymmetric conflict, and the impossible morality of colonial warfare. The film reminds us that the most important productions are often the most chaotic, that desperation produces masterworks as reliably as confidence, and that sometimes a film about the impossibility of clean victory demonstrates its own thesis by refusing to provide audiences with easy resolution.